Are we living through SEO Armageddon? Because everywhere I look, I'm seeing articles and videos about how everyone is using AI platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude to look for stuff online. And if you believe these articles and videos, traditional search is declining quickly. Or is it? Joining me on camera to unpack this super hot topic is Alexis Pratsides. He's the global head of digital at Fin Partners. We're going to talk about the new world of GEO, what this means for in-house marketers in healthcare, and practical advice on how to make your posts stand out on these AI platforms. Oh, and you're going to want to stick around for his comment around how an old school PR strategy will help you in this new age. Let's get to it.
Sway Health.
Alexis, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
I'm excited. I'm always excited to get together with our friends from Fin Partners, a great partner, great supporter of the Sway Health community. So thank you for that. Alexis, we're going to talk about a fantastic topic today, SEO, and whether or not this is SEO Armageddon. Are we living through it right now? But before we get there, Alexis, for the benefit of our audience, can you just give us a quick little background and a little bit about your role at Fin Partners?
Sure. So I started an agency in the UK 20 years ago, and we came into the Fin Partner Group 4 years ago. It was a full service agency, so SEO is a component, but we also built and designed websites and run paid media and social media. So as we came into Fin, we continue to do that. And now over the last couple of years, my role's developed and I handle all of those things for Fin globally. So a lot of touch points, a lot of different disciplines, but they're all interconnected. And yeah, it's a pretty good ride.
And it sounds like you have a lot of hands-on experience with the topic that we're going to be chatting about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So by design, I study software engineering, so I'm sort of a techie geek at heart. And the early stages of the old business were very much a technical web design business. But as we grew the business and developed over time, Google started emerging. So we kept getting asked, you're delivering us these websites, but now we need them to rank in Google. So ever since the very early days of Google's engine, we have been working with it and ranking clients in it. So right from the very beginning through to today, through all the evolutions, ups and downs, spam updates, pandas updates, you'll all remember those, right through now to the kind of fledgling geo programs.
Well, let's go right there since you brought it up. My first question is really the titular question of the episode, and that is, are we living through the end of days when it comes to SEO? Like, is everyone just going to move now to AI searching? If you believe some of the hype and the stories, is that where we're going in your mind, Alexis?
I think it's certainly heading that way. I think less from the fact that SEO is going to die as a discipline, but more so that AI search is growing fast. And I think the old way of Google crawling the internet and reading content and ranking content under its own algorithm, that's going to slowly fade away. And then the new AI models, which are ingesting the very same content and thinking about and presenting the information in a different way, that's on the rise. And that's what's going to win out. So, when we think about SEO at the moment, there's fundamentals, there's things you need to do with your website, there's on-page content, off-page content. That's kind of like the holy triangle of SEO. All of that plays a huge part in geo. It's all still relevant. But the thing that's come along now is that as the LLM models are reading and processing information, they're reading and prioritizing the really good content that sits on other people's sites that's very PR led. So Geo is bringing together the disciplines of SEO and PR, and you need to be thinking about how they interact and work together to then get these, visibility bumps within the AI algorithms.
So just a couple of points of reference here. When you say geo, Alexis, what do you mean by geo? Can you
So it's generative engine optimization. It seems that there was very uh, many terms that started to appear for what this AI search piece looks like, but geo seems to be winning out across the board. So generative engine optimization is optimizing websites for AI models.
All right. And PR, did you mean public relations or did you mean something else?
Yeah, public relations. Yeah. So,
Okay.
our friends and colleagues in the PR departments who are out there, creating content and getting fantastic media coverage in tier one publications, those pieces of coverage are huge authority boosts in the minds of the LLMs as they're looking to answer questions, quite complicated questions that people are asking of them each day. So, you know, we used to in the SEO world be able to find some, reasonably unknown blogs that had high authority and get some content placed on those, and it was much easier. Um, the LLMs seem to be favoring the really big branded, publications and authoritative places online, which the PR colleagues are working with every day.
Well, it's good. So I mean, in a way, when I hear you, it sounds like we're returning to well-written stuff and moving away from a little bit moving away from okay, having to do all of the complex SEO style coding that has to go with the right heading tags, with the right meta tags, with all those kinds of things. It sounds like, hey, it's really about the content, and it's really about where that
It's
content
right. I
sits.
mean, there's different types of HTML tags now that we need to use. You'll be hearing a lot about structured data. So the LLMs are still reading the HTML and looking at the content in a similar way. And these pieces of structured data and heading tags still guide the models as to, what's important on the page and what should I be paying attention to. So we've proven with some testing that the LLMs favor really well structured pages. Um, they like bite-sized, digestible chunks of content. So content is absolutely still relevant and still king. Um, but we found that if you can have a subheading and then a small chunk of content, often that will just get almost entirely cited in the answer to people's questions. So letting the LLM understands your content in chunks gives it more chance of those chunks being cited in their answers rather than having to understand reams and pages of white paper content and then it'll have to figure that out by themselves. Um, so yeah, content is more important than ever.
But it sounds like you have to structure that content in a way that is somewhat optimized for LLMs in addition to
Uh,
the reader, right?
Correct, absolutely. And some of the quick tips for your listeners is um, they're very much paying attention to like TLDR, too long don't read summaries at the top of articles, saying in this article you are going to learn, or we are going to talk about X and Y and Z. Um, those things are helping the LLMs to, pay attention to the content that sits beneath it or not, depending on, what they've been asked to go and look for. Um, as well as FAQs at the bottom of an article. So some further reading, some further context to the piece. Um, we can directly ask related questions and then answer those questions in the same article.
Wow, I like this already. So let me go there on just the FAQ stuff because that's something I
Mm.
haven't heard so much. I've heard of the TLDR stuff, and
Yep.
all of us don't want to spend a lot of time reading articles that aren't relevant. So I love that stuff at the top of it. But the FAQs, are these FAQs related to the article you just read and are just really re-summarizing it, or are you saying that these are FAQs leading to other content and other
Yeah, so
things?
it's like an expansion of the content. So
Okay.
sidebars, extra little tidbits of information that might not be relevant to have been in the main piece, but like subsequently, if I've been interested in that piece of content, here's some other things that I might also want to be learning about that are related to that piece of content. One of the interesting things that's come out in the last few months is that we all, as users of search engines, have trained ourselves to shrink down complicated questions into like 5 or 6 words. because we know how search engines work, and we know we don't need to have all these, extra words if they're not needed. So the average search phrase in Google is sort of 5 or 6 words, whereas the average search or question with your LLM model as you're talking to it now is about 25 words. So people are going the other way. We're learning that the more precise, the more information, the more context I can give the model as I ask it a question, the better my answer is going to be. So what we're saying to clients and people that we talk with around this sort of area at the moment is that you've really got to think about the extra things that could be around the piece of content you're creating. And so the question in the FAQ could easily be 15 words long, 20 words long. If you can investigate the results and the queries that are being entered into the LLMs, and there's some tools that help you do this now, then you can start to have your adjacent conversations and questions that sit at the bottom of the articles, which then bring more weight to the quality of your article.
Gotcha. So as a quick example, if this was an article around cybersecurity, at the
Correct.
bottom, it sounds like what you're saying is that I may have some other articles related to, the latest viruses or the latest
Yeah.
phishing attacks or the latest
Yeah.
privacy issues. So not something that maybe was covered in that
Yeah.
article, but a
Yeah.
related content
Yeah.
and then a little blurb in
Yeah,
the
like so
bottom
think
going,
of it like a more detailed, next level down set of
hmm,
questions that get into the weeds a little bit more,
I like it.
and get very specific. Um, but yeah, exactly right. And interestingly, you can, you know, paste the article that you've written into one of these models and ask it, what questions are people talking to you about around this topic? And then you can start to extract information like that to wrap around what you've already created.
I love it. You've covered there a ton of great best practices already, like structured FAQs, making sure that your content is placed on high authority websites, which is something I want to ask you about. Just tons of great things there. I mean, but before I ask that question around the websites, I mean, is this a lot of work, Alexis? Because it can sound like a lot of work to do all of this stuff.
Yeah, it is, and that's where the SEO programs and working with SEO agencies and teams, um, it's been a kind of similar set of work for the last 5 years or so, very technical, content heavy. The type of work is evolving, so it does take a lot of research, it does take a lot of planning. Um, you do need to work with the technical teams to get the pages structured correctly. You do need to be constantly thinking about the topics and the topic clusters. If we want to build authority for our website in a particular area, you need a lot of supporting content, as we've just been discussing, to sit adjacent to your main piece of content. And it's that sort of cluster or hub of content that the LLMs will be, ingesting, looking at your brand online, because the other thing about SEO is very, very big on links. Classic, we all need links back to our website. LLMs don't care about links. They care about understanding your brand, where it's mentioned, and it can tie it all together without the need for any links.
Well, let's go there. I mean, because that was one of my questions is, you talk about high authority being a place that LLMs favor. And by
Correct.
high authority, I think we know the sites, and I'll just, whether it's Forbes or Fortune in the
Yep.
business world, or whether it's, Scientific American, if you're kind of in
Mm.
that world, like it's just, we know the big publications in our respective spaces.
Yep.
Um, so because content is so much favored on those places, is there any chance that a brand, an individual company can compete there? Or is it better off, you know what, forget it. I'm not even going to have a blog anymore, except for my own customers and things. I'm just going to focus on these high authority places. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right. And that is it's a really good question, because the answer is, if you can imagine the old marketing funnel, right, with the kind of top of the funnel is all the kind of adjacent content, your blogs. It's trying to drive people who are investigating a topic and researching a topic. You want them to come to your blog to read your content. Um, and then they start to, understand your brand and recognize your brand. And then as they go on about their journey, they might see another piece of content. And when they're ready to actually do something, they come back and engage with a service page, for example, and then they get in touch with you. What we're seeing is the top of the funnel is moving off of your website now and it's into the LLMs. So all the research and all the activity that people undertake as they are starting out on a journey to do something, that is happening off site. So what we're seeing with clients at the moment is their website traffic is dropping, right? That's concerning. Um, but interestingly, the conversion rates are potentially increasing now, right? Because the traffic that ends up on your website, having already been doing research elsewhere, the traffic that comes to you is ready to do something and highly engaged. So the conversion rate on your site is going up, even though the traffic is going down. And so, to your point, do we spend time and energy designing a blog and running a blog on our website? We still think the answer is yes, because you need for the LLM to understand about what you do over and above your service pages, right? You've got to have this cluster of content. But we also now, on top of that, need to focus our energy in building brand equity on all these other websites so that the mentions of you on those sites mean an LLM will cite you in a response to a particular topic. So it's a long way of saying there's more to do now than there ever has been. And whilst the blog is not going away, the expectation that people are going to be coming and reading your blog and spending time on your website, that's sort of disappearing. Um, it will be found and ingested in the LLM models, but your customer base might not be reading it on your site. They'll be reading bits about it from the LLM citations.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you put it there. It to me, it almost seems like what we write for our own websites now, and I'm talking for both a company as
Yep.
well as a healthcare provider. It's the same arguments.
Hmm.
What you put on your site is still useful to your visitors, right?
Correct.
Guaranteed. It's still good to have that there, but it's almost as if that content is really to help bolster your other reputation,
Correct.
the
That's
stuff that
exactly
you're
right.
doing on podcasts, the stuff you're doing,
Yep.
when you get quoted on that, fantastic local news piece.
Hmm.
When the LLMs look at that, they go, well, who's this person? And they come back, they can look at your site and go, oh yeah, well, they've clearly spoken about this topic. They've got a lot of stuff written there, so they must be, reputable. And it
Exactly.
increases.
It's exactly right. And so what the LLMs do is that the way that they work, it's obviously phenomenally complex, the actual inner workings of these LLMs. But what they essentially do is they build these entity clusters, right? And so one cluster might be a person, and then that person, their job history and their LinkedIn profile and how long they've been doing something. So we now know this person has been doing something for 30 years. They're highly influential. Then I've got, clusters of content on my website, but I've also got articles online. And so it ties all of these bits together. And the more entity relationship points we can create out there that have meaning and authority, the more it leans on you as a prospective, really good brand to cite in an answer to a question. So you're absolutely right. The podcast, the LinkedIn profile, the LinkedIn post, the blog posts, the citations on news sites, industry sites, all of this gets wrapped together and very, very quickly in nanoseconds gets decided on that this is the way to pull together all these entities to answer this particular question. So it's our job now to create these authoritative entities. And to your point, one of them is a blog, but also don't neglect your X feed. Don't neglect Twitter. Don't neglect YouTube, because they're all independent entities that can have their own high levels of authority.
Alexis, you're doing a great job of leading me where I want to go. I was just about to ask that. How much influence or importance is your social game now?
Yeah.
How much authority or how do the LLMs factor in your LinkedIn posts, your
Mm.
Instagrams, your Reels, the YouTube videos you put out
Yeah.
there? Is that a good thing, in other words,
Yeah.
to
It
focus on?
all wraps together as part of the profile. From our testing, And we try different things all the time for ourselves and for clients. LinkedIn has a higher value than average at the moment. So everything you're doing on LinkedIn, the LLMs are paying a huge attention to that at the moment, as does YouTube. Um, X and some of the other channels, they're definitely playing into it. We don't know how far they're influencing some of the sort of corporate, business level um, questions and conversations at the moment, but they're definitely in the mix. And if you've authored a piece of content and it sits on a blog and there's a variation of that blog in the news and there's a video piece and there's X post about it and there's LinkedIn posts and it knows that you're a really strong leader in this category, then all of those supporting pieces just tie together to give you more power.
Yeah, and I'll add two more just to the mix of things. There's also Reddit, right? For anyone who's
Yeah.
doing anything around software, I mean, that's a great place to
Reddit is huge at the moment.
right.
Again, it's like LinkedIn. It's over-indexing in its value at the moment, which is great for now. But we fully expect the models to even out the balance over time. But Reddit and LinkedIn, you're right to mention that. They're the huge ones right now.
So, Alexis, if I was a company owner or somebody in marketing listening to our conversation,
Mm,
what's the key takeaway here? Like, what can I start doing tomorrow to prepare myself for this world if I haven't already? Like, if I'm not engaged already with an SEO agency, if I'm a smaller company, if
mm.
I'm a smaller marketing team, haven't done any of that stuff yet, what can I do to prepare myself for this coming wave of change to move to the GEO world?
I think there's a few things. I think you need to make sure the technical piece on your website is sound. So the structured data that's giving signals to the LLMs and makes it easy for them to understand what's on the page. That's something you need to take care of. As we've mentioned with the FAQs and the content, the structural piece of the website is a big thing to take care of. The second thing is to start thinking like the models interact with their user base. So at the moment when people think about SEO, they think in terms of keywords and search phrases, but that's like 2 words or 3 words. We need to start broadening our mindset to start thinking about a sentence. What are the sentences people are going to be asking the LLMs, which then I need to include in my content, or I might want to have a whole piece of content about that one sentence. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is just making sure that the brand equity and your own personal equity, if you're a smaller business, and profile is constantly growing. So developing out those channels we just discussed and LinkedIn and having a profile on Reddit and some of the other channels. So they're probably three really good takeaways that you can instantly start working on.
I love those. I love those, Alexis. And let me add one more question for you here. Alexis, where would you recommend somebody go to? What are your authoritative websites or blogs or podcasts or YouTube channels on this topic? Who would you recommend people listen to or watch or learn from?
On the topic of SEO or
Yeah, on
geo.
topic of SEO, GEO, yeah, all this stuff.
Yeah, I think X is full of this kind of conversation at the moment. Any hot topic, instant discussions. I think Finn. I wouldn't I'd be amiss if I didn't mention Finn in the mix here because we've got some great content coming out on this topic, and we've had some recent podcasts that have been covering some of this. Um, I think. Some of the older SEO roundtables and SEO journals, they're evolving. They're keeping the older brand name, but they're covering this whole topic. So yeah, there's some good places to start.
And of course, you can always just go to those tools themselves and ask them,
Yeah.
where should I go to go learn more
Yeah.
about this
And
stuff?
and actually on the point of tools, that's a really good sort of segue, really. A lot of the standard SEO tools are rapidly now starting to include measurement and investigative tools for queries for the LLMs. So the classic, Ahrefs, SEMrush, those types of tools, they're all now having geo components in there, so you can start to track how you're performing.
And that's, I mean, that makes sense for them, right? I mean, any of these, both the publications that cover this space as well as the tools that are in this space, they have to evolve. Otherwise, we're going to be dropping them like yesterday's
Exactly.
Betamax.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Alexis, this has been fantastic conversation. I've learned a lot from you. Where can people go to learn more about Fin Partners and connect with you?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, Alexis Pratsides on LinkedIn, finpartners.com if you're interested in our services and want to hear more or talk more about this topic. I'm very passionate about the search space, and I'm very happy to have conversations, even if people just want to bounce ideas off me. So yeah, look me up and we can connect online.
Excellent. Well, Alexis, it's been a pleasure having you on the program today. Thank you so much for answering all my questions about this particular space.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Hey, I really enjoyed that conversation with Alexis. He had so many practical suggestions on how to navigate this transition to a new world of search, or should I say GEO. I'm going to start by looking into adding FAQs at the end of all of my articles now. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, we'd really appreciate it if you could help us by mashing that like button, clicking that subscribe, or writing a nice comment below. Also, head over to Sway Health, that's Sway with 2 A's, .health, where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.